I had to call in another corps member, hey, I need help, and she came in and she was like, she helped us out. But I can't erase that from my memory. Hola YouTube, ¿cómo están? What's up YouTube? How you guys doing? Hopefully well. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Yale Bass, and today we're going to talk about my experience in City Year. What is City Year? So it's basically an Americorp program that if you're accepted, you will be working in an underprivileged school, and they have locations across the nation. And you get a scholarship at the end of your service, and you basically work with students on an individual level but also in a classroom, which is the after-school space. So I'm going to talk about the experience, and I'm going to divide it into 4 parts. 1, what a normal day looks like for a City Year Corps member, pros and cons, and last but not least, the living, housing, logistics. I did City Year back in 2016 to 2017 school year. Number 1, what a normal day looks like. And I'm going to give you these timestamps to give you a realistic idea. So I would wake up at 5:30 in the morning. I would prepare myself for an hour, get ready, eat breakfast, and at 6:30 a.m. I am out the door. And oh my god. I get to work at around 7 a.m., 6:50 to 7 a.m. And I'm actually pretty early because you don't have to be there until 7:30 in the morning. At 7:30 you meet for circle, and you are in a team of 10 to 12 corps members, and so you have to meet up. You go into your circle, you talk about roses and thorns. Your roses are like the good things that happen to you, and thorns the bad things. They would talk about announcements, shout outs, updates, whatever. That lasted like maybe 5 to 10 minutes, depending on what was said. And then afterwards you would go and do your cheers, and that's part of the City Year culture where you have to get pumped so that the students can get pumped. And so they had specific songs and cheers already set up for us, and we had to learn them basically. And we would do this in front of the school or in the middle of the school, and we would invite students to also join us singing and getting the school pumped up for the day. And yes, we would do this every single day. So after we did our cheers, we would get ready to go to our classrooms. So every corps member was assigned a specific teacher to work with. So you go to the classroom of that teacher, and you have a specific caseload of students. So, and this could be like 12 to 15 students, maybe even less, and they're not all in the same class. They're pretty dispersed throughout the day, but you're with the same teacher. So I was working with a 6th grade teacher, 6th grade math, and once you're in the classroom, your task is to check in on those specific students. So you're not just helping the entire class, you're actually supporting those students that you were told to support. You also had to take those specific students. Let's say I only had 3 students in first period that I had to help, so I would take out those 3 students, and I had a little table set up for me in her classroom, and we would go over certain math problems, go over the homework. After the school day ended, so at 2:45, we would run to our classrooms, so our after-school classrooms. They would divide those 10 to 12 corps members into pairs, and so each pair was in charge of an after-school classroom. And I had an after-school classroom for of like 10 to 30 students. It changed. Some of the students would drop the program, some students would be added to the program in the middle of the year. And in those after-school classrooms, the first hour was dedicated to tutoring. And you had a lot of liberty in creating this after-school space. But the basic schedule would be tutoring the first hour. The second hour, I I kept thinking really hard what was the second hour or what we did that second hour, but I don't remember. And the last hour was dedicated to the STEAM lessons. And so they had a book full of STEAM lessons that we would have to facilitate throughout the year. And they're really cool. We're in the Silicon Valley, and so this might be unique to the San Jose region. But we, we created little boats, analyzed different parts of a car, even create little cars, anything related to science and technology. So after that third hour, we would end our day at 5:45. We would clean up, and then we would circle again and talk about any shout outs or updates, announcements, questions, and then we would be out by 6 p.m. and that is your day. So from 7:30 all the way to 6 p.m. Second part is the pros of this program. One of the pros is it gives you perspective on the reality of our education system. But being in this school where there was not a lot of supports, teachers were unhappy, even the principal was unhappy, and students would do outrageous things, graffiti, would throw out, I think one of them broke into the principal's office, and it was a lot of windows were smashed into. That's why they chose City Year to be in that school. So most likely than not, you will be placed in a school very similar to the one that I was in, a public school where students are low test scores, very bad behaviors. The second pro is you get to observe classrooms and teaching styles for the very first time as an outsider, right? You're not a student anymore, and you get to see how teachers structure their classroom. It also gives you experience working with students academically and coming up with different strategies of how to, okay, you didn't get it this way, let's try it this way. And City Year doesn't really support you in giving you those teaching strategies because you're not teachers, right? But you kind of just figure it out as you go. And if you're like a natural tutor or teacher, and a lot of us are, you just try to figure out, like, okay, if you didn't get it this way, let's figure out a different way to do it. So if you're like a problem solver, this is gonna be perfect for you. Because if a student doesn't get it, that's a problem, and so your job is to figure out, how do we resolve this? And it also gives you experience dealing with student behaviors and learning how to react to those situations. Next pro, it gives you a sense of purpose. And I say this because a lot of the things that you will be doing are going to be measured. There's like a measuring system in place. Usually. It might not be for your case. But in my case, we had certain tests that they had to take, and our goal was for the students to improve those test scores. And for me, 70% of students that were on my caseload improved their quantile benchmark scores by over 100%. So they took the test in August, and then they would take it again in November, and then again in March, and they went by over 100% by the time school ended. That was very rewarding to hear that, wow, like these students, we are making a difference. Imagine if we weren't here, like would they have made this much improvement? And at least, and I believe like 70% of them as well also increased their grade by 1 letter grade. Another pro is that if you also want to be in Teach for America, which they do help you with testing costs if you are low income like I was, it's gonna be perfect because they are 3 times more likely to accept City Year core members than if you weren't. And we had TFA come into City Year to talk about their program various times. They helped with they had interview workshops if you were prepping for the interview for TFA. So they just support you and want you to become a teacher. Next, there are a lot of opportunities to create things, or if you have an idea or a proposition, it's very easy to get it started with City Year. Let's say you're a core member and you want to take on a leadership role in City Year, you could do it. And if you have ideas or whatever, you could do it. There was somebody in my core that decided to come up with this cultural sensitivity or identity sensitivity activity, and it involved the whole core, the whole San Jose region. They gave us certain identities. For example, my identity was an undocumented Black gay man, and so each person had like a different identity, and obviously different from who you really are, and they would give you different scenarios. There were times where you couldn't get married or you couldn't buy a house because of your status, anything. And so it really gave you perspective on understanding other people's situations. So she started that up, and that was great. I felt like it gave me perspective on a lot of things. And for me personally, I just had an idea and I knew the right people. I invited a representative from Apple to come talk to the students through 8th grade, and she spoke with the kids. She was an immigrant herself, and so I mean, she gave her time to talk with us, which is really cool. And so if you have an idea like that, it's super easy to get it started. It just starts with you. It's not easy to get a job, but it's like very easy to network with the tech companies. City Year has huge connections to the tech companies because a lot of them are sponsors of the program or of the organization, and sometimes the companies will invite core members to tour the place and engage with the engineers or the employees of that company. And so it's very easy to network around that. So if you are into tech and want to be a teacher or want to be an educator, I think City Year San Jose would be the perfect place for you. Cons, whoo, the cons. I like talking about real shit. So here we go. So when the pay is horrible, and I was getting paid $900 a month, which is like, and think about it, I was living in San Jose. It's like the Bay Area. Bay Area is the most expensive region in the country. So it was tough, and I'll talk more about the living logistics in a little bit. Second con is that it was super traumatizing to hear about students, their situations. A lot of the students, if they develop a close relationship with you, they will talk about certain things like deportation, death, etc. And it happened to me, and I didn't know how to react but to cry. I felt hopeless, hopeless, helpless in so many ways, and it traumatized me because I had a group of kids, and I was in charge with another core member, but that core member quit. And so I was in charge of this whole group, and I had a lot of behavioral issues since I had never taught or any of that. So I had no idea how to react to all these things. And one day I was just tired of it, and I just told Suze, you know what, let's get into a circle and we're going to talk about what's really bothering us. Because, you know, every behavior stems from something, right? And so I decided to have that, and students opened up about, my dad was deported, my dad was this, my family, we're poor, whatever it is. And it was really tough to hear because I have my own issues as well, and a lot of it is relatable. And so I couldn't take it. I didn't know how to handle it. I ended up crying, and the students saw all of it, and crying not because, oh my god, these kids, but crying as in, I'm being empathetic of these situations. And I had to call in another core member, hey, I need help, and she came in and she was like, she helped us out. But I can't erase that from my memory. Understanding students' behaviors it all stems from something at home, and I became more understanding, and I'm sure they became more understanding of students' situations, their own classmate situations, and it just went better from then on. So it's a con because they don't really prepare you for that, because it could take a mental toll on you because you don't know how to help them, and there's so many of them, and you don't know, you can't rescue them all, you just can't. So I just wasn't prepared for that. And the last con is that it is the San Jose region. I don't think it's very competitive. I think the LA one is a little bit more, but the fact that it's less competitive, that means that I feel that there's going to be less qualified people. There's going to be people that don't really care that much. A lot of the core members that I ended up working with I think they were there just to like have a good time. They were just excited that they were in California, and a lot of them were from out of state. And many come from privileged backgrounds and don't really understand the struggle. And so that's why I say that it's a con, because it's not weeding out all the ones that don't really want to be here, or they have different intentions. And what you guys have all been waiting for, especially if you've already been accepted to City Year, and I think this is important, is that living logistics in San Jose. So it was $900 a month. That was how much I was paid after taxes. And I had food stamps, about $200 a month, and which was more than enough for me. And I didn't pay insurance. I had a car, but I didn't pay insurance or had a car payment. My parents took care of the insurance in that moment or in that year, and the car was already paid for. My mom just gave it to me. I know it sounds so weird, but so I paid $400 in rent, and I believe it includes all the utilities. I'm not quite sure. But I was sharing a 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment with 6 other girls, and it was not very pleasant, to be honest. And one of the girls left mid-year, so our rent went up a little bit, $450 for each of us. And it was just interesting, and my commute was 20 to 30 minutes, which is not bad at all. So that was all my experiences in City Year. And I hope it gives you perspective on, a real perspective on what this organization, what it is. And I hope it gives you a little bit of perspective on education if you really want to become a City Year core member. I don't think it's that hard or competitive, but I think it's worth a try if you really care about students, and just remember what your intentions are. Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed this video, you thought it was helpful. If so, please leave a comment below. If you have any questions regarding the process of applying or even for the interview, let me know, and I'll try to make a video if there's a lot of people asking. Otherwise, please like this video or subscribe if you want to see more videos on education or just all about life. But yeah, thank you so much. So I know that the new thing are those AirPod shit thingies, but I still have my Beats. I know I'm old school, right? But anyways, for those who wear Beats, yo, and you go to the gym, right? Like, doesn't it get like super sweaty here? And all I do is just wipe it down, but I just wonder if that's even sanitary. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think that's sanitary.